decision already because at that time he knew that there's one place in the mountain, there's one cliff. He decided to jump from the cliff.
自跳下去要找到我的人很难。
And he knew that if he jumped from there, few people can find where his corpse.
我开始恐惧。
And then he started to have fear.
面对这个要死亡的恐惧。
The fear for death.
每一天都在颤抖。
And every day he was trembling.
我没有办法停止这个颤抖。
He could not stop this trembling.
所有努力都消失，都没有用了。
Because all the efforts failed.
而且我非常肯定不可能撑到。
And he was so sure at that time that there's no enlightenment at all.
也不可能去了解什么叫生命，那是骗的。
And he also feel that he was cheated because there is nothing like to understand life.
但是我一直在喝酒，白天也喝，晚上也喝，但是我儿子一直吵着要回家。
And he kept drinking daytime, nighttime, all the time kept drinking. And the youngest child was beside him and asking him all the time. He wants to go back to his mother.
有一天晚上，我跟我住在我的一个朋友的房子，那他带我去喝酒，我就开始侮辱人，然后讲得很难听，甚至要杀人、要打人的那种状态。那我那个朋友非常的不喜欢我。
And one night he stayed in one friend's house.
一起去喝酒。
And they went to drink alcohol, drink wine, and
在bar
in the bar. And Cuckoo was making troubles in the bar.
Yeah.
And
broken bottle, and then my friend catch
trouble.
outside say you are too trouble, I don't like you. And then my drive car， 我不知道破坏多少庙宇，我忘记了，因为太醉了。
And then he drove the car, 一个人 by himself away, and then he stopped in many small temples, and at that time he could not remember how many temples he destroyed.
然后回家，我不知道怎么回家，然后怎么睡都不知道。
And he didn't even know how he went back home and how he fell asleep.
然后我儿子就一直吵说他要回家，他要回家，再回家。
And the youngest child was still with him, and the youngest child was saying to him all the time, "Send me back to Mama. Send me back to Mama."
然后他把我吵的时候是11点，
早上
11点。
Could remember that it was 11 a.m. one morning.
然后我就说好，我等一下带你回去，让我睡好，我再带
The
你回去。
child was saying, "Send me back to Mama," and then he said, "Okay, let me have some sleep, and then I will drive you back to your mother."
但是我喝太酒，不知道怎么样，头很痛。
Because Cook was so drunk and he had a headache.
然后我就喝了钙离子，然后继续睡。
And he drank some calcium water, and then he went on sleeping.
醒来2点，
When he woke up, it was 2 p.m.
我儿子还在旁边，
And the child was still beside him,
说他要回家。
and saying the same words, "I want to go back to mother."
我说好 ，OK， 我必须带你回去。
And so he said to him, "Okay, I take you back."
我就上了车，带他走。
And so they got on the car.
30分钟可以到他家，我开2个半小时。
Normally, it would take only 30 minutes to drive this child to his mother's house, but it took him at that time 2.5 hours to drive.
这个 city 知道，
making circle in the city.
因为我知道他一回家我就必须，我什么都完了。
Because he knew that after the child returned to the mother, then he has to finish his own life.
然后我儿子一直说他要回家，一直回家。
And then in the car, the child is still saying, "I want to go back to mother's home.
不要再绕了。
Don't making circle."
然后就离到家20公尺。
And then there's only 20 meters away from the house,
我身体没有力量，
and he felt very weak, totally no power in the body.
我知道我已经将入我一定要去死亡，因为我这种做事情，我必须决定，我必须去做这个事情。
And
我知道已经确定了。
because Cuckoo has been a very decisive person, so at that time he knew the decision is already made, and he has to do what he decided. He has to kill himself.
然后到那个地方，我儿子就冲走了，
And so when they arrived there, the child rushed up.
就冲到他的门口去鸭店里面。
在2楼，
在4楼。
4楼。When they arrived there, the child rushed up to the 4th floor to ring the bell.
我内在是想去追他，但是我没有力量，开始恐惧。
And he felt like to run after the child, but he was so afraid, so
恐惧。
so full of fear. Then he was trembling. He could not run after the child.
但是我还是不愿意走这条路。
But still, he didn't want to go forward.
但是我儿子他也放弃我了。
At that time, his youngest child already also gave him up.
我什么都没有了。
So he didn't have anything.
我必须走死亡这条路。
So he knew that he had to walk into the death.
然后我就开始走到那个门口。
And so he walked upstairs slowly.
门是开的。
To the 4th floor, and the door was open.
我至少要跟他们说再见吧。
He told himself that at least he has to say goodbye to the children and the ex-wife.
然后我爬那个4楼的楼梯，每一步我可以感觉到每一步都非常的沉重，到每一只脚好像几千公斤这样在走，而且一直颤抖。
And when he was climbing up the stairs, he can feel that every step is so heavy.
开始走上去。
And he was walking up slowly.
走到4楼。
When he reached the 4th floor,
门是开的。
The door was open.
我一进去。
And he entered.
我不认识这些人。
Then he could not recognize the people in the house.
很奇怪，怎么一种在那个瞬间我蜕变。
Very mysteriously that in that moment he was transformed.
怎么会这样
Why?
所看到的景物都不一样。
景物不同。
所看到的人都一样，都不一样，还是他跟我们的那个亲情都消失了，那种关系都消失了。
The people in the house were his family members before, but in that moment, they looked like strangers.
没有办法
No connection, and no words can describe how he saw at that moment.
那瞬间没有办法用语言跟你表达他是怎么蜕变。
It's beyond the language to express how he was transformed.
开始只是有眼泪一直掉。
And then only tears coming.
没有办法讲。
And no words.
只是一个看。
Only the watching is there.
没有痛苦。
No pain.
什么都不知道，只有一个空在那里。
And knowing nothing and only one emptiness.
没有关系，没有痛苦，什么都消失了。
No pain, no relationship, everything disappeared.
只有哭。
Only crying.
然后傻傻的在那边。
And standing there.
我不知道多久。
Motionless. He didn't know how long he stood there.
然后三巴掌就跟我推。
And then his youngest child, Samadan, came to him and pushed his body.
我跟他讲说，你要多爱自己。
Cuckoo said to him, "You have to love yourself more."
然后我就离开。
And then he turned and left.
他一直哭。
And still keep crying.
然后你说怎么那么简单
？And kept saying to himself, "Why so simple?"
然后一出来就不一样。
And then when he walked into the street, what he saw at that moment was totally different.
整个世界都是我的家。
He felt the whole world as his home.
看到人就好像都是我的孩子。
And then all the people walking in the street looked like his children.
我走在路中间，不怕车子撞。
And he was walking in the middle of the street and has no fear for the cars.
车子都这样闪来闪去。
And the car has to give way to him.
我一直哭。
And he was just crying.
这是我家。
And saying to himself, "This is my home."
他一直走。
And then he kept walking.
有人帮我抓。
And some people try to help him.
我抱着他哭。
And then he would hold this passers-by and
我不知道他跟
cry
我问什么，
because he could not understand what they are talking to him.
我只能说怎么那么简单。
And he just kept telling them that why so simple.
然后我不知道我走多远，
And then he didn't know how far he walked.
我就坐在一个桥旁边，
And then he sat down on a bridge
一直看着，
and watching people
然后一直说怎么那么简单。
and just keeps telling himself why so simple.
然后我醒来的时候，当我开始回到这个身体的时候，已经是隔天的8、9点，8点9点。
早上。
嗯。
And so when
没办法睡。
in the end he slowly came back to his body, and it was the next day 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning.
没办法睡觉，
And the previous night he didn't sleep at all.
就是很亮。
Just feel everything looked very bright.
然后只是一直对自己说，怎么那么简单，事情怎么那么简单？
Just one sentence repeating, why so simple? Why so simple?
然后慢慢醒来，
And slowly he came back to the body.
然后就开始找我的那台车子，
And then he started to look for the car.
找不到，
And he couldn't find the car.
然后就一起走，
And then he kept walking.
就为了找那个车子，我知道我应该找车子，车子是别人的，
And he knew he had to look for the car because the car was borrowed from his friend.
但我一直找到我已经在一个草地上睡觉，
And then he found himself sleeping on the grass.
但是我没办法睡，
But he could not fall asleep.
然后我就慢慢又回到更深的身体里，
And then slowly he came back deeper into the body.
来打电话给我的朋友，
And then he made phone call to his friend.
他一来，
And the friend came to him
我开始笑，
and he started to cry and laugh
哭，
and cry.
我就开始逼着他说，我知道你不知道我。
And then he pointed at his friend and said, I know you, but you don't know me.
然后他就带我回去找车子，
And so this friend took him to Cuckoo back and look for the car.
我就开始笑，
And then Cuckoo started to laugh.
看到人就说你是我的孩子，
And then no matter who he met, he said to him, You're my child, you're my child.
然后身体开始变化，
And then the body started to change.
很热，
Started to feel warmer and hot.
没有办法穿衣服，
He could not tolerate the clothes.
保持都一定要没有办法穿一件衣服都没有办法
Not
穿，
even one cloth on the body.
这是我的朋友跟我开冷气我都没办法，还觉得说很热，
Even they put him in an air conditioning room, but he still feel very hot.
差不多有4天的时间，我慢慢回归进来，
And about 4 days later, he came back
还有风，非常疯，
and then became very crazy,
就像疯子一样，
like a really crazy person.
看到人就知道，
And 什么叫看到人？
看到人就可以洞穿他的问题。
And when he see any person, he can penetrate this person.
然后我就开始笑，
Then he started to laugh.
我那个朋友受不了我这种状态，要跟我打架，
And his friend, who kept him in his home, could not tolerate how he behaved, so he wanted to beat Cuckoo.
因为我常常一直讲人，人家会怕，然后他就拉我回去，然后我就跑出来，大家看到人就像疯子一样。
Because at that time, Cuckoo, whenever he met anybody, and then he started to talk about this person, and he was very frank, so he offended people, and so his friend was worried and angry.
然后他就一直跟我吵，我就一直笑，
And
我一
so,
笑他越生气，
so Cuckoo just laughed, and then the more Cuckoo laughed, the friend became more angry.
然后我就拿了东西，我就跟他说再见，
So Cuckoo packed his luggage and said goodbye to him.
我就跑去公园睡觉。
He went to the park, sleep there in the park.
隔天早上我就去看了一家旅行社，然后我就摸摸我身上还有一些钱，我就去买机票。我知道我不能留在台湾，我要到中国去。
Next morning, he went to. He knew he could not stay in Taiwan anymore.
然后那天晚上在疯，我就跑去 坐一台计程车说你载我去哪里玩都没有关系。
But that night, the last night he was in Taiwan, he was so crazy. He hired one taxi and said to the taxi driver, "You can take me to any place."
然后那个计程车带我去舞厅，
And the taxi driver took him to the dancing disco.
我竟然能够在舞厅里面跳了很美的舞。
And then Cuckoo could dance beautifully in the disco.
Yes。然后这5天来都没办法好好睡觉。
And before this
就是很拘
night,
谨。
5 days he didn't have any sleep at all.
而且衣服都没办法穿多。
And he could not put more than one clothes on his body.
然后我就到北京了。隔天那天晚上，很恐怖的，我身上有2000到3000块美金，一次是100块美金小费呢，给小姐呢。
He has
我还记得那个。
3,000 US dollars in his pocket that night. He remember, and then when he was in the dancing hall, he remember he gave every time he gave 100 US tip to the girls. Came to sit beside him,
然后我就发现不对，
and then he felt
那个计程车司机好像不是把我拉着，
and so the taxi driver, and then he was trying to protect him
还载我去机场，
and took him to the airport
不跟我收钱。
without charging him. When we reached Beijing, he went to see his friend and stay in this friend's hotel.
我开始静下来，
And he started to quiet down,
我开始认识，
started to give himself a long time for sitting,
开始认识这个新的身体，
to know this new body,
开始看到我的过去，
his past.
但是没有那种痛苦跟连结。
But when he was reading his past, there's no pain, there's no connection of this emotion.
我开始知道说，什么叫从过去重生。
And then he knew what is the rebirth from the past.
然后我一直跟这个身体开始认识这个新的身体，
And then he was staying long time with his body because he needs time to understand and know this body.
我知道我重生了。
And he knew he was reborn.
所以那1年开始，我开始宁静，都不讲话。
So during the first year, he was quite quiet. He did not 讲话，你有讲话？
没有什么讲话，只是讲一个平常这样的东西。
He did only daily talking when it was necessary, but he didn't meet people.
然后开始写诗
And then he started to write poetry.
，and then me fast for the capita。
And he sent it fax to Kavita.
这个传真他还保留，
I still keep this fax.
我很感激。我开始感激帮助我的人跟伤害我的人，我都开始感激。
And then he started to feel grateful to people who hurt him or people who help him.
然后我就通知他们，通知 capita 过来。
So he sent a fax to Kavita and told Kavita that he was in Beijing and he invited Kavita to join him in Beijing.
然后他就到北京跟我会合。
So Kavita flies from Pune to Beijing to meet Cuckoo.
And then go to Sichuan Zen Mountain, Zen Temple.
And then we started travel in China 5个月嘛
Yeah.
5 months. And then we went to visit Zen temple in Sichuan.
尤其到禅里面，我发现我跟所有的禅师所了解的东西都是一样。
Especially in the Zen temple, Cuckoo read many poems there, and then he saw that his understanding was the same as like those Zen master.
所以我的手就不能停，
So his hands were very busy,
一直
writing all the time, very often.
因为2、3年的时间写了将近2000首以上的诗，想要告诉我这种蜕变的了解。
So during the
就是
first
写不出来。
3 years after he got crazy, he wrote about 2,000 poems, trying to express what he understands, but he can never really make it.
然后这3000首的诗，我发现还是表达不出我内在想要告诉你们的。我说这种重生的过程，就像这种生日的过程一样，新的生命。
2000嘛，你刚刚说2000。But you with this almost 2,000 poems, he could not express how he was reborn. Just
我以前不会写诗，
and before he could never write
也不会
poetry,
画画，
and he could not do any painting.
然后开始可以做。
But from that on, he started to do painting and to write poetry.
所以在怎么想尽办法从语言文字要想去表达都无法的情况之下，而且头脑永远就在我的眼前，永远没有办法在我眼里遁形，就在那边的时候，我不知道给我的这个重生的名字叫什么。所以有一天我在想说，应该我给这个头脑一个名字叫疯子。
So in this way, his mind is always so transparent in front of him. So he named himself. One day he decided to give himself a new name, and then he named himself Cuckoo.
因为我看到头脑是那么愚蠢，就是这样，
Because he saw this mind was so stupid.
我发现每个人头脑都是一样，
And he found that everybody has the same mind.
所以我给他的名字叫
So Cuckoo, so he named his own mind Cuckoo.
从这个片刻之后，我不曾生气过，
And from that moment on, he never lost his temper.
我不曾痛苦过，
He never felt painful.
我不知道什么叫恐惧，
And he never know what is
什
fear,
么叫制约，
what is 制约 conditioning,
什么叫禁忌，
what is forbiddance.
一清二楚。
Everything is very clear in front of his eyes.
所以今天是一个生日，
今天是一个生日。
今天是我身体的生日，不是我重生的生日。
So today is his physical birthday, but it's not his rebirth.
那一天是2月16号，
He was reborn on February 16.
刚好是中国的过年的最后一天。
It was the last day of Chinese New Year.
所以在那个瞬间之后，我生命真的是让我发现，我开始嫉妒你们。
And from that rebirth, he started to 嫉妒你们，
开始嫉妒你们能够活在
to feel jealous about you because
你们活着可以继续痛苦，可以继续这样。
because you
我
can
我
keep
想回去都不可能。
you can keep suffering, but who cannot go back to do like you do.
我一直想回去你们那个世界，
Cuckoo always like to go. Huh?
回到你们这种世界，痛苦的世界、抗争的世界、冲突的世界。
你想回来，你在讲什么？
我想回去这个世界，好像回不去。
Cuckoo want to return to this world of suffering and fighting, but he can never make it. He cannot return
我
to
请
this
你们把
world.
我拉回去，拉不回去。
Yeah, if he even ask you to help him to come back to this world, but he can never
我
make
回不到你们的世
he
界，
cannot return to your world.
怎么办呢？
What to do?
我这种疯疯癫癫的。
So he can only play crazy.
Yeah.
But why you like to return?
你为什么要回来？
To feel.
我是想要回，但是那是头脑的游戏，但是我就回不去。
That is the game of the mind. Wants to return,
Yeah.
but
然后我就开始逃了，
so he
我就开始回到生活里，回到市场里。
so he started.
结果今天会在这里。
That's why today he's here.
因为我都没有曾经去讲这个过程，我未曾讲过这个过程。
Because he never talk about this process.
从那一次之后，我才发现都是简单的。
And since that time, he found that everything is very simple.
而且任何事情我发现都是自然发生，我也不曾去找人。
And he also find that 每一件事情都简单。
呀，很多事情太简单了，我不想去努力，我都已经没有努力。
Everything is simple because he does not have to make any effort.
而且我不会去主动的去找人，
什么叫主动找人？我跟你讲。
然后呢，就很多人自动的一直靠近我，来想，觉得想要跟我聊聊天的，或者想跟我靠近，就这种问题就一直在发生。
And then he never look for people, but people come to him automatically.
Before Kapila go to Tibet, many people to Ali, to
Cuckoo, sorry, I have to go to pick up my student. For you,
for me,
for your birthday, not real birthday. but-
you too, ah.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
讲这个段是很无聊，很深的去这种抗争，所以我对我自己所有头脑的挣扎，我都一清二楚，我都可以看到一些过程。所以这种画风之美，
Because in the past he was doing a lot of rebellion against the society, against the tradition, and against himself, and 对自己有很多的抗逆，然后呢？
很多的深入探讨。
A lot of struggling inwardly, and he could not get free from there in the past.
然后这种变化之后，你回到这个身体的根容易。
And because he had a lot of experience in this self-struggling and self-exploration, so after the change, it's easy for him to go back to his body.
那你们就是对自己深入不够了解，对自己不够信任，或对自己不愿意接受的话，有一天也许你也有这个片刻发生，但是有时候你回不来，你会变成在风里面。
This kind of change can happen to anybody, including you. But if you do not have enough understanding and experiencing of your own self, and then when that moment comes to you, maybe you would just go out of your mind, and then you will end up in the mental hospital.
同一体的东西。
Because if you return to your body, then you realize that you and nature and existence
地球
and
宇宙
our
宇宙
planet and this earth
你会发现是同一体的，
are one.
所以你必须有一个根，就是多深入自己，爱自己，深入了解自己。那么那个片刻来，你会发现，这一切都是超越言文字的东西。
So you have to stay with your own root, that is your body. And then when that happen to you, then you will know it is just beyond what the words and language can express.
那时候你的爱都是一样，跟太阳的爱一样。
And when that happened, your love would be the same like the sun.
不管你是谁，在我眼里，我都对你们充满了，都是都是平等，都是爱的。
So no matter who you are, in Cuckoo's eyes, everybody is the same because everyone is equal.
然后你会有一种能力，
And then you, after that happened to you, you will have a kind of ability,
每一个人的能力都会不一样。
and everybody would have different ability after that.
也许你会成为一个只是引导别人做进行的师傅，也许你会成为一个很美的一个，你会使用你身体所拥有的能力去发挥到前然。
You will make use of whatever your body, heart, and mind have, and then you will make use of it to the maximum.
除非你去接触到自己跟存在的连接，
除非
你都是
this would happen to you only when you are in contact with yourself.
你会发现你是被推到这个世界来进化到这种状态。
And then you will see that you are born to this world for this evolution.
不要怀疑自己，
So don't doubt about yourself.
信任你自己，
Trust yourself.
你不需要去了解别人，
And you don't have to understand other people.
信任你自己，
You only have to go deeper into
只有
yourself.
这一步，
There's only this step,
你自己。
yourself.
这是我这8年来第一次讲那么清楚的。
This is the first time in these 8 years that Cuckoo talk about this experience in such a big details.
我不能说它是什么，
Cuckoo cannot give it any name.
什么是成道啦，什么那个都是没有办法来表达这种进入这个世界里。
No word can express this. How you go into this world, no word can express.
可以 lighten， 可以 jump into understanding， 都是绘画。
The word enlightenment or jumping into understanding, these words are all nonsense.
因为那种，你已经进入那个世界，你就是进入了，你没办法任何言的。
When you enter that kind of world and then you are there, and no words can express.
不要从语言里面要找出答案，除非你自己去进入。
So don't look for answers through these words unless you enter this world.
你从你自己重生，
You are reborn from yourself.
下个片刻，你们会跟我一样的孤独，很单
And
独。
in the next moment, you will become as alone as Cuckoo is.
你绝对不会无聊的。
And then you would not feel bored.
没有人会让你